Recording. All right. We've got the West Coast Mastermind series, although we wanted to open this up to all regions because this is such a great topic. Not the most exciting topic to see pop up on the call list of like who wants to talk leases, woo, but so important. And
Kelly's like,
Kelly's
I
like,
do.
"Hey, sign up." So important. So I'm really excited not only to do this, but also to have it in our archive of videos that I can reference to um, owners and future owners. I just think I know how little I know about it. And it really, this sparked from a conversation that Zia and I were having, where she was kind of going over several different things of like, gosh, I wish people just knew to do this. And I was like, gosh, I feel like we should have a call about this. And we agreed. So I'm so thankful that Zia is going to be here to share a lot of her wisdom. Additionally, I also asked Oscar Ramos, he's the owner of CrossFit Downey, 17-year affiliate owner, and also very much in the real estate space at the same time. So kind of able to give well, he's got the affiliate owner perspective also, but give the perspective also as the landlord perspective. So he himself owns um, several different, not more than several. I think it's 750 apartments between California and Nevada. Um, Owns 100,000 square feet of retail space, so knows what it's like to be someone that rents to people. Obviously, being a managing member of like a real estate company, he's also knows like what to look for and what's going on in the market. So good resource for us. So thank you so much, Oscar, for hopping on. We had a conversation maybe a year or two ago about how wouldn't it be great if we could get owners to start buying their buildings, which
Yes.
for I think a lot of people, especially in California, it can feel like a bit of a pipe dream. But um, where we're at right now is really just about what can owners be doing now to prepare themselves? Can they be doing better? So that they know what is coming. And yeah, hopefully we can even answer some questions. And then I also asked Craig Howard to hop on because he's always a wealth of knowledge. And in this case, also, I think he's going to be a almost a bit of a case study as he's currently navigating a lease renewal. And so can kind of, as much as he's willing to kind of open up and share about that whole process. So, but if anyone does have specific questions, I'd love this to be able to be like a bit of an open forum. So we don't have a formal, Zia's going to give this presentation situation, but I really do hope that we can lean on each other and really just learn and get some stuff out of that. So, Zia, if you don't mind, since we talked a lot about it, basically thinking pre-lease renewal time. Like let's almost back it up a little bit and just what are the common things that you see a lot of affiliate owners running into mistakes or problems that could have possibly been avoided?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this a lot, Craig and I, on the affiliate council with leadership. And we do feel like the number one threat to CrossFit isn't necessarily other gyms or the economy. It's literally real estate. It's the lack of real estate to open new gyms and the lack of knowledge to maintain the facility that you're currently in. So I do think it's super important that everybody understands that just because they have a lease doesn't mean that they're safe and they don't have to think about it until the lease is over. Leases are something you need to pay attention to the entire time. You need to pay attention to market value. If you enter into a 10-year lease and you're only halfway through it, you've got to be paying attention to what market value is because when that lease is up, you better believe that your landlord might love you and want you to re-sign, but they're going to want you to pay market value. And that could be a huge hit. When I re-signed my lease, my rent went from 12,000 to 24,000. Now, I knew I was in a long-term lease, so I knew I wasn't paying market value. So I planned for that. I actually planned a little heavy, so I was a little pleasantly surprised that it was, what it was, which is, is what it is. But it's important to start really honestly never stop thinking about your lease and really being aware of all of the parts of your lease and knowing every portion of it and hiring a broker. Brokers are free. You wouldn't go to court without an attorney. You should not go to negotiations without a broker, no matter how well you know your real estate or no matter how well you know your landlord. Your landlord cares about them care about you a little tiny bit, but ultimately they care about them. And their broker is most likely who you're talking to, and their job is to get the best deal for their client. They don't care about you. And that's not to be mean, but that's just the way the business works. So you always, always, always want to have a broker. Especially, is everybody here in California?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Not sure about-
California's got some gnarly stuff that they've been adding to their leases. I obviously look over a lot of leases um that in California they're adding in those development clauses. I'm seeing a lot of those go in leases, and you know, those are dangerous. So you really want to make sure you have a broker to find those, figure those out. You don't ever want to sign a lease where they have the right to void your lease at any time to develop. So there's a lot of ins and outs of leases that we just need to be aware of. So I want to get started just like the pre-lease situation. So everybody's lease has like a point in it where they have to be reaching out to their landlord with intent to renew or vacate. And that can be anywhere from 30 days to 18 months. Could probably, I mean, it could be whatever the landlord wants. Mine was 18 months. So I had to decide whether I was going to re-sign or move. And I had to notify them within 18 months to start the process with them. So knowing how long you have is a good step one, because that's when you need to start really getting a broker involved, making sure that you have all your ducks in a row and making sure that you really want to stay there and you know what's around, because that's the point where you need to start negotiation with your landlord. And does everybody know like what theirs is by chance?
Most people don't.
Yeah.
Is
Unfortunately,
it,
I think most people are so excited to just start a gym that they're just like, I'm just gonna jump in and let's go. I'll figure it out as I go. So yeah, you're dropping some important knowledge
That's
here.
Yeah, that's a big thing. If you miss that date, then they don't have to negotiate with you necessarily. That first right of refusal could go away. Other things that could make that first right of refusal go away is if you ever get a violation or pay late on your rent or anything like that. If they have to contact you and say, hey, you're not allowed to do this, or if you get a noise complaint, stuff like that can actually null and void in the state of California. They're your right of first right of refusal. So it's a couple of things to think about. They don't need to state that in their lease, but that is something that is to, when you're thinking about signing a lease, is this space going to work for me? If we're trying to find a space, is the noise level going to be a problem for your neighbors? Bringing in a barbell and dropping it from above your head before you sign a lease I would do that before I even started negotiating a lease. I personally hired a sound engineer to come out because I was afraid that the houses were too close. And the broker actually said, no, it won't be a problem. We'll protect you, which is kind of not true, because the city is going to trump any landlord saying, like, the landlord doesn't care if you get noise complaints, it's the city. So I actually hired a sound engineer. It cost about $600. He came out and evaluated the decibels, and I brought barbells, and we kind of ultimately decided a couple of spots that I was really interested in for my newer location was not going to work. No matter how much we did and no matter how much sound preservation we tried to do, it was going to break the 75 decibel city limits. So bringing in a barbell, maybe even a sound engineer, and bringing in the barbell 2 days in a row. I suggest doing more than one day. Everyone's like, oh, just drop it and see if anyone complains. A one-off isn't going to invoke necessarily somebody calling and complaining. But when they start seeing like, oh, this happened yesterday morning and now it's happening again, I need to figure this out. So I would do it more than once and just kind of see the noise. The barbells dropping, the clocks actually carry a lot further. Like if you have automated clocks, the only thing that I break decibel on is the gym timer, the guy that talks, the guy that's like 3, 2, 1. The barbells don't do it, but that man's voice carries. So like just being aware of that kind of stuff before you even consider negotiating in a lease, because that is one thing that, like, if you get shut down for noise, you're still on the hook for that rent. It doesn't void your lease, it just prevents you from operating your gym. And that's a huge, huge thing. and you don't want to have to get stuck with that. Um,
Just to add to that, I think there's a lot of when you go to the city, most of the time when you're getting ready to go to the lease, I think people go backwards. Like they try to get the lease first before going to the city. I think you need to go to the city first. If you're going to get a CUP, a conditional use permit, you want to make sure that noise complaints is not a component in there. For example, if you're in a retail center, like multiple stores next to you, talking to the city and saying, hey, well, I have a restaurant next door and I'm dropping barbells, the floor is going to shake a little bit. Is that a problem? Or like you're saying, if you're in a freestanding location or a warehouse, there's people, there's sound, there's people driving by and all of that. So going to the city and finding out like, hey, is there new tenants coming in? What kind of businesses are coming in locally? Because you don't know that at the moment, but most city applications are coming in and they're about 6 months out. So like a CUP would take about 3 months to get approved. So they know what's probably coming in or what's probably in development. So a small example where CrossFit Downey is, we actually have Broken Yoke moving in 2 doors down. So that's going to be a huge problem. I own the facility, so it's easy for me to say, okay, well, I need to move my facility, or if not, I'm going to lose the rent of Broken Yoke, right? So it's like I have to play with that. But they signed a lease 2 years ago. They haven't even started construction yet, right? So there's issues like that, like you're bringing up right now, like noise complaints, sound complaints, traffic control, walkability. That all plays a huge role, and you can find most of that information when you go to the city and just ask them, hey, what's coming in? What kind of issues can I have? And just to add one additional thing, just because there was a gym there before doesn't mean that it would be approved to be there before. So currently where CrossFit Downey is, the moment we move, no gyms are available. So there is a loophole that we know as brokers how to like offset that, but most people say like, I'm gonna buy Z's gym, and if you don't transfer it correctly, that gym is no longer valid to that. So just a little tidbit to add to that.
and your broker, which hopefully you've hired, will do all of that due diligence for you.
Hopefully.
If you sign, hopefully, if you sign a lease and you ask, and it's not zoned for what you signed it for, that does not mean you get out of the lease. So you do definitely need to make sure that you check zoning.
Yeah. And then since you're talking about brokers, it's really important to also hire a commercial broker that
Yeah,
actually does commercial real estate. I get bombarded with calls like, hey, my broker is helping me. And I look at their lease, it's written on a car form by a residential agent. And I'm like, yeah, you're dead in the water at this moment.
totally different.
Yeah, it's a completely different animal. So if you're going to find a broker, you want to go to the bigger brokerages, or just ask them the simple question like, do you specialize in commercial brokerage in retail, or freestanding, whatever you're asking. But you need to make sure that you have the right broker behind you to guide you in the right direction and knows what they're looking, what kind of forms are these? Are they using a car form? Are they using a ARR form? Like you really need to know that. So for the loopholes.
Yeah. And if when you do get your lease after everything's all negotiated, if an attorney drew up that form,
Oh.
you're going to want to have an attorney look it over as well.
Hmm.
Attorney leases should be met with another attorney looking it over.
Hmm.
If it's not the standard lease that brokerages use and an attorney drew it up, you absolutely should spend the extra couple grand to have an attorney look it over, because that usually means there's a little bit of extra wording in there.
Hmm.
And it could save you thousands when you think about, well, I don't want to spend the money. It's worth it
Yeah.
for sure. The lease I just signed in Oceanside, I had an attorney look it over, and our attorneys went back and forth for 3 months on that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's normal. I think if you're looking at fitness and CrossFit in a long-term perspective, we say this all the time in real estate. My partner Pamela Iniguez is on the call as well. But we talk about this all the time, is that at the end of the day, you make your money on your lease or on your purchase. If your lease isn't drawn up correctly and it doesn't make sense to you when you start, I guarantee you in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it's not going to make any sense to you at that point either. So what you're breaking apart and how you're setting it up at the beginning needs to make sense. So when it gets to the end, it still makes sense to you. If not, you're not going to maintain the affiliate, or you're not going to keep the doors open just because the lease doesn't make any sense, especially if you didn't prep for it.
Yep.
You know,
But the biggest thing is once you sign your lease, once you get to the point where you have one in front of you and you're reviewing it, is, hopefully you have a broker obviously helping you with this, but knowing what you can ask for and knowing some things that you can help out with, knowing what's your responsibility and what you can ask for and what, your options are when signing a lease. Opening a gym is super expensive. You always want to ask for tenant improvements. You want to make sure that they're giving you some free rent. You want to make sure there's some safeguards in there for you if something comes up, um, all those kinds of things. And then just spend some time going down to your local city hall and seeing what's going on. There's a lot of laws changing in California right now. I know Southern California is getting hit with a ton of that kind of stuff. Um, and just knowing the whole state is trying to get all plumbing above ground because of all the sinkholes that are happening. So when you sign a lease, it's probably going to trigger backflow installation all through the state. I'm seeing this everywhere. And if you pull a single permit on your building, it's going to invoke a mandatory backflow. It doesn't matter what business you are, it doesn't matter who you are. Make sure that you have an open negotiation, that's not going to be on you. I just helped somebody with a lease. It's not a CrossFit, wasn't a gym, it was a coffee shop. They just signed a lease up in Sacramento, and they got hit with that backflow thing, and their landlord's making them pay for it, which I think is insane because
yeah.
it's not their building. But stuff like that to kind of think of before we're signing the lease. I know Kelly and Craig are both in lease negotiations right now.
So I think a couple things to also look at. I think the one thing everyone forgets about is just asking, right? There is a ton of incentives at the city. There's a sign program that you can ask that the city wants. They can probably fund even signage. There's probably, like, the city of Downey has like a cleaning program. They clean the parking lots in the back, they clean the parking lots in the front. That's included. So just asking at the city what kind of offerings they have. Cities are required, just like they're required to provide housing, they're required to have certain amenities. Like, unfortunately, some cities have like a free for all, like, hey, we want 50 gyms, and they're going to do it. We like that kind of business, or we want fast food or whatever. So they have certain incentives just to have promote that kind of lifestyle. But what most people forget about is the future, right? So I think the number one thing I see continuously, and Z, you probably see this all the time, is the lack of requesting options,
Mhm.
right? So what is an option? An option is the ability to continue your lease at a certain rate if you request it. So what I see 90% of the time is I signed a 5 year or 10 year lease, and then I agreed to market rate in 5 or 10 years. So what does that mean? So that means, like what you mentioned, Z, in the beginning, you sign your lease for $12,000 for year one, and I don't know, by year five, you're at, let's say, 14,000. Well, they say, well, now you're going to go to market rate and we're going to go to 24,000, and how do you rebuttal that? Like, they're going to show you proof. They're going to show you all these reasons why, because that's what we do. Me and Pam do this all the time. We're going to show you why that's the actual rent for that location, right? So we're going to show that. So when we're on the opposite end, representing other clients, we actually pre-negotiate that. I tell everyone that's a business owner, doesn't matter if you're a gym owner, restaurant, or whatever you are, you need to plan on, hey, I'm on year five at this point. On year five, I need to request my actual increases. So let's say I'm doing year 1 to 5. Hey, on year 5 to 10, I'm going to do 3% annually or 5% annually, or at year so and so, I'm going to pre negotiate my deal before I go in, you know? We are negotiating a deal right now for another client, and I'm telling the client it's not a good deal. They signed for a 20,000 square foot warehouse, $12,000 a month, which is
Wow.
sounds great. It's a 2 year lease, and they're
Oh,
not willing to give options.
oh, so it's actually a terrible deal.
Thank you. Exactly. It's a horrible deal. It's a
Yeah.
horrible deal.
But it's,
I'm telling the
but
client,
you can see how it's eye-catching for someone
oh,
Well,
that's
it's
until you
phenomenal.
say 2 years with no options. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, you're saying like this is great, like 2 years, and I guarantee I'm telling them, I was like, look, year three is going to be $30,000, $40,000. I guarantee you. And they're like, no, 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 no. It's a great deal. The landlord's cool. I'm like, the landlord's not cool. Like we need to make money. I'm sorry. Like we want to keep you barely breathing. Like that's really like and the number one concept unfortunately as a landlord is like can we give you enough to keep the doors open? Can we raise it enough to keep the doors open? That's really what we're looking at. Because we have percentages and numbers that we have to hit financially. So I think that's an important part. And knowing your lease before you go in, like you said in the beginning, Z, is critical. You know, talking to your landlord, again, asking the question like, are you planning on selling in the future? Are you have has this been in the family portfolio for 20 years? Are you planning to keep it? No, I'm going to sell it. Like you need to know those things because it kind of gives you an idea where we're going to be in the future, right? So they're going to try to hit numbers so that these numbers can sell it for what they want it for, right? So and most people don't see it that way, unfortunately, right? So um, fine. It just to this is like a little different, but there's something called a debt coverage ratio.
Yep.
On our lending side, we focus on this, and Z, you probably hear this all the time, right? That debt coverage ratio on commercial is 1.35. Okay. So that means out of that, out of your, let's say $1,000 rent, they have to make $350 more, right, on rent. So it's just simple, like on the whole loan. So they have to make that. So you're without that percentage, they need to make it up somehow from somewhere else. So if you don't negotiate that lease from the beginning, you're going to get charged for it eventually in the future because without hitting that number on the lending side, they can't sell, they can't refinance. They're now stuck. And the last thing a landlord wants to do is get stuck because he has to hit that percentage number. That 1.35 in commercial debt coverage ratio is the key number. So if these landlords are not raising the rent to hit that number, so like Z, your new rent increase, he's probably pushing that number to that 1.35, 1.45. So now his value increases and he can hold that.
Yeah, we
So
were fortunate enough to be told, like when we signed the lease, that they would be selling within 5 years.
you're
So
lucky.
we
Awesome.
were halfway through at 5 years. They renegotiated another five for us that barely hit that number. So we were fortunate enough to be in the loop of what was going on.
Mhm.
So although we didn't receive gradual increases throughout, just the regular 3%, we were given a very big head notice of like, you will be brought to market value the second that we put it on the market. And so we were very fortunate to have that piece of information ahead of time. And it did allow us to grow at the beginning. So we were really fortunate to not have a surprise like that. We were aware of the sale 5 years before it occurred.
Yeah.
without derailing it, that kind of makes me think like, what are the best like ways to cover, in addition to what we've been saying, so that you don't have that surprise? Like Zia, you were talking to me about, tracking the market value and
Yeah.
setting aside, right? Like, are there ways to be in the case that we're not as lucky as you were?
So I still was in contact. I knew market value was coming at a specific year. I was in constant contact with, I have a broker that I work closely with, for just personal, stuff. And he's a big commercial broker around here. He works with a lot of CrossFit gyms too. Um, And so I checked in with him, like, what's market value? Every time something went for rent in my complex, what did that rent for? Like, what's the deal? What's going on? Like, I kept an eye on that. And then what I started doing is I opened up a money market account and I just started putting that money in. So every year, as market value went up, I just acted like that was my new rent. So that when it happened, not only did I already have that money that I was, unofficially paying, I had a boatload of money in my savings account for, you know, I was trying to buy a building, but that didn't work out. But I just every 6 months or so, or if I saw something rent close by, I asked what did that rent for or what's market value. I kept very close eye on that because I knew I was watching a lot of people. We absorbed many gyms that lost their leases during re-signing, and I did not want to be one of those. So that is something you can do, and you build a relationship with a broker like that. It takes them minutes, and they'll be happy to help you because they're going to want your business or find someone in your community. Mine is in my community, so he absolutely has no problem. Look checking on that for you. But in a gym of a few hundred people, someone's bound to be a commercial real estate broker.
Also, you can, if you want to look yourself, there's something called LoopNet or CoStar. Not CoStar. CoStar, you have to have a membership. Crexi.
LoopNet's good.
Yeah, LoopNet is great. Crexi is self-managed, so anyone can upload information in there for free, essentially. You don't have to pay for it compared to LoopNet. The top level, like her friend probably has, Z's friend probably does have CoStar, which gives you market data and all that other fun stuff. But I think what happens for most people is they're just blindsided on what market rent is. They just don't know, right? So if you know your lease is coming due in 2 years prior, you should kind of look to the market and see what's out there. And even if it's just seeing what spaces are available, right? I think just a simple phone call of just like, oh man, that retail center down the street just has a good 2,000 square feet available. Let's say what they're renting for. And I think people get blown off and confused. Like there's different numbers that you see, but the easiest way of thinking about it, you're going to see two numbers, either $2 a square foot, or you're going to see 24, you'll see $24 annual, and people are just like, oh my God, $24. It's like, no, it's broken down in 12 months. So it's like it's still $2 a foot, you
Yeah.
know. So I think most people get freaked out when they see these numbers, but it's really just calling and asking the question. And I think the devil's in the details. I think the other problem that I see a lot too is, and Z, you probably see this again too, is, hey, I'm going to lease this for you for $1.25, but your cam charges are 75 cents, $1 a square foot,
I
and
wanted to talk about cams like for a good chunk too.
mhm. So yeah, go ahead. I'm jumping in there, but go ahead. You feel free to.
I mean, so there's standard leases and then there's triple net, and triple net is going to be less per square foot, but you're going to have common area maintenance, which is called CAMs, that you will have to pay. And that's basically like, I like to describe it as commercials version of a homeowners association. It is a nonprofit holding that takes care of the complex. And depending on what type of complex you have, that will be landscaping. Maybe it's water, sewer, trash. Anything. Mine is an automotive shopping center, so it has like environmental waste removal and stuff like that. And that is basically it changes. There's an average of it. It's so like mine's $2 a square foot. And so my cams are a little pricey. But we have a lot of things are covered under that. And you can negotiate depending on the size of your shopping center cams. The
Mhm.
biggest thing to know is that everything is negotiable. Now, I didn't negotiate very much on my Encinitas location cams, but on my Oceanside, I pretty much negotiated my cams completely out and said, I will pay for landscaping. I will pay for my own electricity. I will take care of my own trash bill. And I negotiated my cams down to 25 cents, which will cover taxes and then liability insurance. And then if it doesn't, then I'll have a CAM adjustment at the end of the year. Just like a homeowners association, they cannot profit off of your CAMs, but so that if you pay extra, they have to give you money back. If it doesn't cover it, then you owe at the end of the year. But it's strictly stuff that you owe. But just because it's on there does not mean you can't negotiate it. Everything is negotiable. And depending on the dynamic of your complex, you can negotiate some of that into your control.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily benefit you, but cams are something some people like to shy away from triple net because you're responsible to pay for everything on a triple net lease. If it's not a load bearing wall or a roof, it is on you to fix it. But on the flip side, rent is cheaper and you don't have to check in with your landlord for anything. Do whatever you want to his building, just maintain it. So I like the idea of the triple net lease for that reason, personally. It gives you more freedom. You don't need to check in with him. Um, but with that, just ask for a lot of tenant improvement up front.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think um, before you're negotiating a lease, if you're currently in one or looking for future, is also finding out what the landlord is responsible for and what he's not responsible for. I think a lot of people, I did a mistake at one location that we used to have, and I didn't know I was in charge. I didn't know that the air conditioner, I was in charge of it. So I never used it. I never turned it on. I was like, I am not going to use air conditioning. And he's like, yeah, but you're responsible for it. I'm like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, never turned this thing on. Like, it's, but, it cost me like $7,500 just before I moved out that I had to get it fixed, so.
Luckily, in the state of California, though, they do have to state the air conditioning status on the lease. So if you're responsible for it, it is going to be mentioned in your lease.
Mhm.
So if it is, make sure to pay the $200 to get a HVAC inspection before you start negotiation. Because if you move in and it's broken, and then you move out and it's broken, they're going to do the inspection and they're going to make you fix it before you leave,
Exactly.
even though they know damn
Yeah.
well it didn't work when you moved in.
Yes. Yeah. So that's all very, very common. I think the other big one is just like you mentioned, Katie, the whole backflow, but there's also the redevelopment that's going on. A lot of cities are just not wanting certain businesses in certain areas. For example, the city of Downey never allowed fitness facilities in warehouses, so we had to
That's
go to
all
retail
here too.
centers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a huge one. They start moving certain businesses to certain areas. So I think before even at the moment you are negotiating or you're looking to purchase a facility or whatever you're doing, again, it's just where is everything headed to? Like what direction or what part of the city? You might get moved to a city or to an area that you are no longer welcomed, and that might be where most of your business is coming from for high traffic or new development that's going around in the area.
And that's where that developmental clause can come in. I'm seeing that in so many leases right now that they have the right to void your lease if they
Correct.
decide to develop your building, which
That's correct.
means they could say, you know what, I'm making good money with you here. I'm going to make it high-rise condos. They literally are putting in leases that they can void your lease at any time to develop the property, and it's completely legal. I just helped an affiliate. I just talked to them. They've been there for 2 months and they got their notice.
Yeah.
Signed a
Yeah.
5-year lease. They made it 2 months before they got their notice.
Yeah. We actually, unfortunately, we're building 8 units in the city of Bellflower. Retail on the bottom, offices on the top. We gave them 60-day notice. They've been there for 17 years. We gave them a 60-day notice, said, hey, sorry, we're redeveloping the whole top floor to multifamily and everybody needs to go. So I'm that guy, unfortunately,
I mean, it's business. It's what
yeah,
it is. You just got to protect yourself. And as a gym, knowing how detrimental it is to move more than 5 miles away, just depending on where you are, that's even detrimental. Just really pay attention to what's going on in your city, because only so much is in your control when you don't own your building. So Take that into consideration. Get as much out of your landlord as you can on signing, so that you can save money on that upfront cost. I always say when you're negotiating TIs, tenant improvements, when you move in and free rent, you ask for the moon. You literally ask for everything under the sun. They will never offer it. So ask for the moon, and then they'll counter with something, and then you can negotiate with what you're comfortable with. When I re-signed my lease at Encinitas, I got $80,000 in TI.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was there for a really long time. The building was a dump.
Mhm.
So I mean, I asked for more and they thought I was crazy, but our big bay doors, we have 15-foot bay doors and we had four of them and I had already replaced two of them at 20,000 a pop and I knew that one of them was about to go. So that was in there. So that
Wow.
knocks it down to like a normal amount. But you ask for the moon, you ask for 6 months free rent, ask for however long, I asked for 4 months free rent with my Oceanside location. And we used almost all of it on construction. So it's not like it was like, oh, freebie, I'm bringing money in, but you ask for the moon and then let them tell you, no, how about this? Because it's always, always cheaper to keep you and give you a little bit of TI than hire a brokerage firm and find a new tenant and have vacancies. So they will negotiate with you. There's an industry standard for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know since Z, you're talking about asking for the moon, the other thing that you should ask for that most people don't even think about asking is, what about if I wanted to buy this building? You will be surprised if you ask that question. We're actually helping CrossFit Monrovia at the moment. We're trying to help them buy their building.
In
And
Seattle or in Washington?
no, in Monrovia,
It's
California.
east of
Monrovia, California.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, with Caesar,
Oh,
so yeah, so we were telling them like, talk to the landlord,
They've
a
been there
lot.
forever.
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem for most people is that they don't even think about asking that. Just keep this in mind, like most landlords have had these buildings for 20, 30 years. They don't want to pay taxes on it. So if they can receive your monthly rent, maybe two, 3,000, $5,000 more, and that goes towards the mortgage, and they're collecting that. Now their rent now became a mortgage payment. So just something to keep in mind. I know it sounds off the wall, but if you don't ask, you will never know. So asking
and
that question like, hey, I'm planning to be here for 5 years, maybe another 10 years total. Would you consider selling me the building in 10 years?
put it in
And
your
they
lease. Ask for first right of refusal. That
first
way,
right of refusal.
they have to tell you first when they're thinking of selling because you have first right of refusal in your contract. So even
That
if
is
you're never going to buy it, always ask for first right of refusal in your contract because then by law, they have to tell you if they're going to sell it instead of hide it from you and then tell you when they have a buyer.
It's huge.
that's
Like you
huge.
said, even if you don't have intentions of
And if
ever
you're not going to buy it, make them give you first right of refusal so you know when it's going to go on the market because they don't need to tell you they're putting it on the market. But if you have first right of refusal, they have to. So even if you're never going to buy it, put it in the lease. And then maybe you will buy it. I tried so hard to buy my building or any
You,
building. I tried to
you
buy
did.
anything. I tried to
That's
buy
why
land. Did not work.
you had to call me, Z. You didn't call me.
I tried so hard. I was getting outbid in Encinitas, like Saudi Arabia is buying all of freaking Encinitas. I was getting outbid. I put an offer in for 2 million on this land. And then they were like, no. And then I offered 5 million, 6 million. It was worth like 1.5. Finally, like 13 million cash. I'm like, cool. It's
Yeah.
been sitting there for 2 years, not a single permit. And then like everything, I was just getting outbid like crazy. And I was just like, you know what?
So I think Katie will one day set up something for like SBA talk, and we can start guiding people and helping people on this. But I think that's we just Pamela and I just did a transaction a month ago. This guy bought a warehouse, 6,000 square foot warehouse for $10,000, not 10%, $10,000 down.
Yeah,
So
the SBI
there's
is great. If you're going to own, operate, it's perfect.
yeah, you got
It's
to
what we
own.
were going to do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think it's something that most people, again, I think, realistically, and Z, you brought this up in the beginning, but I think the biggest thing is everyone thinks too small. right? Everyone just really thinks really small and is afraid to ask the landlord for everything they need. You know, if you're planning to dedicate, 12, 14, 15, 40 hours a week at this location, ask, it's just like when you're buying a home, right? If you're going to buy a home, you want to make sure your bathroom's nice. You want to make sure your flooring is nice. You want to make sure the neighborhood is nice. It's the same thing when you're looking to lease a facility. It's the same thing. You want to make sure you're in the right area. You want to make sure you have parking. Like, you want to request all those things. You want to know who your point of contact is if there's a repair or something that needs to happen. And I think most people just forget to ask for all this stuff. And you need to anticipate, especially if you're going to dedicate your livelihood or your time frame for a good 10, 15 years into a business that you care for. And I think it's just a matter of asking the question, you
I
know.
wanted to take a second, Craig, if you had anything to add about your experience in this process, and feel free, or you could pass it back if you're just taking notes on what they're saying. But I just wanted to open that since you're in the middle of it.
And, a minute now, 20 years. I wish this call had taken place 20 years ago. I had someone say to me when we learned about triple nets the hard way, at Alamo, that education is what you get when you read the fine print, and experience is what you get when you don't. And I've got a lot of experience. All of the things that Z and Oscar described, I've had happen. We signed a lease here in Pleasant Hill. I signed a 10-year lease. Went down, got a business license, but the business license department doesn't necessarily check with the zoning. 6 months in, I found out that this area that I signed a 10-year lease on with a personal guarantee, by the way, that's another thing that you guys didn't mention. They'll ask for personal guarantees, and that's a negotiable item as well. With a personal guarantee, I was told that I couldn't be here. And we had to, it took literally 10 years of working with the city to eventually get the conditional use permit that allows us to be here appropriately. In the meantime, we had to be a fitness equipment company selling fitness equipment so that we could be here. There's ways to get around all those things, but that was a really, really scary lesson. And literally we almost found ourselves on the wrong end of that deal. And my landlord, ironically, made no mention of it, made no mention that, a fitness facility, the landlord who had owned the property for probably 15, 20 years, made no mention that a fitness facility couldn't be here, had already leased another property to in the same complex to a volleyball club. So the landlord does not care. They want a lease, they want deposit, they want a deal done. They're assuming that the lessor is gonna, or the leasee is gonna take care of it. The triple net deal too, property taxes are part of triple nets. And if a property is sold, in California, there's an instant assessment, or is instant reevaluation. That caused us to shut down one of my locations now 10 years ago, when the rent literally jumped overnight, by several $1,000s. And when the lease expired, there's no sense in continuing it.
I'm going to add something to that.
Yeah.
It's not just on the sale. Now it's any repairs next door.
Yeah.
So that's what so for example, if it's on the same parcel and you're in location one, location B, a restaurant goes in and they spend $1 million, good luck on that.
Yeah, there's an assessment based upon their capital investment in the property. Yep. That's another good one. All of I did take notes on quite a few things that you guys talked about, and you got me thinking again about maybe a purchase. Here's the other thing so what we're going through right now, and I think a lot of affiliates are going to go through over the next few years. Private equity bought the building. This was owned by this complex I'm in, this street. It's just a killer location. For my affiliate, it's perfect. We're in a court. We have access to the street. I'm finally in with the city, and so my landlord has owned it for 20 years, and they finally decided to sell. Who'd they sell to? Private equity. Mm-hmm. The private equity guys came in, and literally, it's almost exactly what you would think of private equity guys. With the collared shirts and the flannel vests. They did. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and they told me they have our holding period. Our average holding period is 5 years. Well, first of all, I know I got a property tax increase. As a matter of fact, the assessment came, just last month, started last month.
Gonna come again in 5 years.
Yeah, and then so in 5 fucking years, they're gonna flip the property again. And if you go to their website, if you go to the company's website, BKM Management, they literally describe the acquisition of this property with the intent of, the average cost per square foot is substantially below market value. We see an instant appreciation by bringing everybody up to market rates. Sure enough, my lease is up this year and renews this year, July. Thanks to Zia, I have started, who's, got me on it. Have already started negotiations, but they want to take me up about 50% over where I am today. And Oscar made a great point, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is like it's my margins versus their margins. It's like, so any increase they get comes directly out of my profit margins. So it's like, how much am I able to give up? Now I raised rates to, because I hadn't raised rates in a few years, but I raised rates to accommodate the property tax increase. But now they want to raise, triple nets and lease rates. So now I'm looking at that going, holy shit, my margins are going to be cut. I instantly know that. And then 5 years from now, I may have to deal with this again. So that makes me think about, okay, what am I going to do about the business? And it is a tenuous position when you're established, when you're just starting out with CrossFit, fine. You're like, fuck it. If I make this thing, I knock it out of the park, I'll move to another location. That was my thought process.
I'm with you.
But now I'm 20 years into this fucking thing, and I'm locked into this location. My members are locked in. It's a beautiful location. Now it's a heartache. Because I'm thinking, okay, there's not a lot of places for me to move that are gonna, provide the same environment that I've built, over these years. So just the thinking about SBA and really getting into this and thinking about acquiring the building is a reasonable thing to do. You may not,
Think about acquiring the entire
yeah,
building, not just your unit,
that's a good point.
the entire thing.
Yeah.
So where CrossFit Downey is 5,000 square feet, but we own 10,000 square feet of the space there. So I actually, you guys are gonna laugh. Like I only charge $135 a month, right, for a CrossFit membership. And people are like, "Are you kidding me?" It's like, well, all my other tenants next door pay for the mortgage here, and that's the key word, the mortgage, not the rent, right? So I haven't had to raise prices since the day I bought the building, right? So we need to plan for that. Like, and Katie, we've talked about this. I've had this conversation with Glassman years ago, right?
Yeah.
We need to plan for that. Like we need to have that presentation, Craig, like, hey, would you sell me the building, or like sell me that parcel, or sell me, what are you willing to do? Right. So we need to have that conversation. And it's just like Z said, we have to ask. If not, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And the SBA is a great way to do it. I mean, it's hard in California. I get it. And depending on where you are, like I'm sure buying that whole building is going to be expensive. But I mean, it's not like you need to show income for that. Like you have tenants and all of that. But seeing it even from the landlord side will help you better understand why things are being negotiated the way they are, and knowing what shouldn't be in your lease and what should. And just, you know, when I became a landlord, it became much easier for me, and I had much more confidence negotiating my lease, knowing like the other half of it. But yeah, the goal should be to try to buy a building.
The right of first refusal, Oscar or Z, one of the two of you
Yeah,
mentioned having that right of first refusal. So
huge.
the thing that surprised me is I had no idea the building was for sale. And
Yeah,
I only heard it's sold.
Yeah.
And
exactly. That's why if you put the first right of
that
refusal in there,
that irritated me, right? Because one, now I've got a membership, I've got people in within my own community that probably could have raised capital to do it, or would have been interested in doing it themselves, or through SBA I could have maybe done it myself.
Yeah.
But I had no idea it was already done deal, and that was frustrating. That's again, that's experience, not had I done
well,
the work.
again, yeah, I learned that from the first time, right? I learned that, and I could have bought the whole complex
Yeah.
you know, back then. It was such a long time ago. I think the whole complex sold for like 16 million. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cheap. Like I could have.
The ideal, I think the best freaking CrossFit affiliate owners are the ones that own their business. What Oscar are doing, it annoys the hell out of me. But man, dude, so impressed.
We
Pretty
had
cool.
to. We
Yeah,
had
that's
to.
that's
The
outstanding.
pro so
That
so
having
it
that concern out the not worrying about that is
the
awesome.
problem is that this is so I don't like I always hear about your beautiful location. I hear this all the time, but and Z, I haven't seen your location either, but you guys are we're on the ground. Like all of these affiliates, you're on the ground. Like what's hot. Like this area is hot. Like everyone comes here, everybody wants to come here. Guess all these private equities, all this Arab money, all the all the Chinese money that's coming in, they're looking at these areas, right? These gentrified areas, so they're hot. So they're coming in, and what's happening is that they're just gobbling up building after building after building. So it's putting us in a position. So where CrossFit Downey is, right across the street from us, if you know bakeries, Porto's Bakery is across the street from us. They sold 42 million last year across the street from me. So it's
It's
a hot location. It's insane. So we
Brewer,
have
breweries are coming in, bakeries, all that stuff.
last stage shipping.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what they call it. Yeah,
Yes.
Amazon, last stage shipping.
last mile shipping.
All right. Now, in Encinitas, and in Oceanside, you can't put a gym in a retail or a industrial area. You have to put it in a retail. You can't put it in, which is so annoying because the best place for a CrossFit gym would be in an industrial area where they can't make noise problems.
Mhm.
And so like here, like we are bound to insane like margins with that barrier of entry super high. I just opened my new location right on the 101, high risk, high reward, but like that makes it so much harder for somebody who doesn't already have another location to be like, okay, I'm going to open a little gym for $16,000 a month and it's going to be fine. Like it's the biggest problem with affiliate being able to say I would like to open affiliate is the rent, right? Is the real estate.
That's killing everybody.
I do think it'd be good to do a follow-up call soon where we continue the conversation and dig into the long-term goal. For some, it can't be for everyone, like you said, or how to frame it to be purchasing. I did want to grab something that Craig said about the personal guarantee. If Zia and Oscar, if you guys have a little bit of a input on that, the do's and don'ts there, just before we have to sign off.
So with the personal guarantee, I had one at my Encinitas location when I first opened. We were able to negotiate that off. I do not have that with my, obviously 17 years now. We renewed. We don't have that. Um, and then with the new gym, I actually used my other location as kind of like a credit check for that. So I don't have a personal guarantee on either. But if you're going to put yourself as a personal guarantee, you need to be prepared to lose what you're putting down. So for that reason, if you're putting yourself down as a personal guarantee and you are going to be liable for that, one, make sure you can personally cover it without becoming homeless. But two, you better believe that lease is 100% on your side and what you want, or you're going to find yourself in a hole. Because if you're personally guaranteeing something and then all of a sudden the city shuts you down for a noise complaint, yeah, you're fucked.
Hmm.
So if you're putting yourself on the line and using your home, I would never put my home, never use, like, it better be a sure thing if I'm putting a HELOC down because something goes wrong, they're going to take your house. They will not care if you become homeless. They will not. So it needs to be a pretty sure thing if it's going to affect where you're living. Like that lease, give your lease to another affiliate owner. Have other affiliate owners read it. Just like with Craig said, like, oh, like, somebody's going to have gone through something and been like, oh, you know what? It literally says in here, like, I don't want to share my P&L with people either. So, like, if they try to put, like, we want to see your finances monthly, absolutely freaking not. That's none of your business. I make them take that out. But, like, having other people read it just to be safe because especially if you're putting down a personal guarantee. If you're opening a brand new gym and you don't have a relationship with them, they probably will ask for a personal guarantee, and rarely will they take that off. That would be my experience, what I've seen, Oscar. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but
There's a
if
couple different things I'm going to add, so I'll let you finish.
if you're re-signing, you can negotiate that off. Like Craig, you should have no problem negotiating that off at 20 years.
Yeah.
Even at 10 years. Kelly, you could probably negotiate yours off too, because Kelly's
I did.
renegotiating right now.
Yeah. So if you've been longer than 5 years and they have a different intention, there's an extra value as a when I'm doing a loan or selling if everyone has a personal guarantee. So as a broker, I look for those. I'm like, oh, this one has a personal guarantee. Cool. This one's perfect. So you want to negotiate those off. If you're 3, 5 years and you've had no late payments, you got to negotiate those things off. Like they're a nightmare. Now, um, if you are looking to in the future go SBA or something, just keep in mind you're going to have to personal guarantee it. But
Yeah.
adding to that, at the end of the day, if it's a location you've dreamt about, like this is the spot I want, and they say, well, we're not going to let go of the personal guarantee. That's fine. You have to negotiate something called a breakout clause. You need to have a clause that says, look, the city shut me down. What is my exit fee? Like
Yeah.
I'll personal like so we do this all the time. I personal guarantee everything. I'm like, here's personal guarantee, but I need this breakout clause, and it's only going to cost me $1,000 if I need to get out of it. And this is what it is. And most of the time, landlords are so obsessed with personal guarantees that they don't understand. Landlords are like you and me. Like there's no difference, right? Like they just happen to buy all this stuff, but they don't know as much as most people, right? But there is a breakout clause. There is the ability to do that. If you can avoid it altogether, get rid of it. Like you just don't want it. And a 1000% correct with Z. Do not put your house because they're going to go after all of that, right? But again, you can put a breakout clause to get out of the bad lease for whatever situation. Again, most people don't request it. They think it's like, oh, I have to do it. You don't have to do it. So you put that in there, say, yeah, I'll personal guarantee it, but here's my clause. If something happens, another COVID situation, right? Most of my property, I had other affiliates actually before COVID. I had four of them, and the only reason why we got out was because we had a breakout clause. That gave me the ability to not be liable for the 5 year location or the 6. I was able to get out of all of those leases because of that.
Our
So
neighbor just negotiated a $50,000 breakout clause. And I was like, was that your negotiation? Like, that's terrible. But I mean,
that's
it's a
terrible.
bigger unit. And he's like, well, I'm like, that's a terrible negotiation.
What was it?
Yeah,
What did you
refer them
bring it
my
down
way.
from?
But yeah, like, what was it?
Yeah, refer them my way for that one. That's a good one. I would need that. I would need that. So, but yeah.
But if it's not in there, which it won't be unless you ask for it. But
Mhm.
these are all things, guys, that a good broker will help you with. These aren't secrets. They're just things that, like I say, you don't go to court without an attorney. They're not secrets. They're just things that you need to hire a professional to help you with because it's literally the backbone of the business. It's so important. You will change zero people's lives if you lose your lease because you were just so excited to get the ball rolling, or you didn't know you had to get the ball rolling, or all of these things are completely and 100% preventable. And it's not on, like, we have to know how to run a business, yes, but there are certain things that we can be tasking out to other professionals to make sure that we have this protected and under control. And laws are always changing, things are changing. Every city is different. My Oceanside concerns are different from my Encinitas concerns, drastically different, right?
Mhm.
And so have a broker and never start communication with your landlord without speaking to a broker first, because once you've started that conversation and you get a lease in your hand, you can't just say, oh, never mind, I have a broker. That will go over terribly. So,
And don't let them dual broker you, by the way.
No.
That's a Don't do.
yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that the landlord has their broker, and you call the broker and he's like, well, I'll represent you too, right? I'll represent your side, even though he's working for you, but he's looking at the best interest for both sides, essentially.
Yeah. But he's
So
ultimately going to probably choose the guy that's paying him
that is correct. So
because he gets paid based on his deal.
that is correct. So don't just because Z is absolutely great. You just want to get your own commercial broker that represents you and not both of you. So just keep that in mind.
That's great. I feel like there's so many like nuggets of knowledge and truth. The main one, like you said, get someone to help you who can translate all this and remember the things that you might not. Um, I think I want to thank you guys. I don't want to take everyone's time. We're already a little bit over, but thank you, Zia, and thank you, Oscar, for giving us so much of your experience with this and things you've seen, things you've done. And Craig, thank you too for chiming in with some of what's been going on with your experience. And I'm really hopeful that this reaches a lot of people and that we can continue um, people moving in the right direction with leases and not the other. It is like Zia said, it is the biggest threat. I can testify to that with the conversations I have with existing affiliate owners that are struggling. It is the most common complaint, believe it or not, is not about CrossFit the company. The most common complaint is about my rent went up and I don't know how I can do this and I might be shutting my doors. And they never sound they always sound surprised. They don't sound like they saw it coming. So I'm so thankful for you guys to share all this with us. And yeah, let's definitely, I'll be communicating with the same group about putting something on the schedule that's talking about the long game of maybe throwing your hat in the ring to purchase and what would that look like.
Mhm. Sounds good.